The phone call came on a Tuesday, the kind of gray, listless Tuesday that already felt like a chore. I was in the middle of reviewing the final paint application for a limited edition collectible, a piece we were creating for a massive film franchise. When my sister Catherine's name flashed across my screen, I gestured for my lead designer, Ben, to give me a moment, a silent apology in my eyes. He just nodded, accustomed to the drill. "Hey, Kat," I said, stepping out onto the small balcony overlooking the bustling workshop floor of Apex Innovations. My workshop, my company, Jessica High. She started, her voice a little too bright, a little too strained. It was her "I'm about to ask for something" while pretending it's for your own good voice. I knew it well. "Listen, I'm calling about Tommy's party on Saturday." Of course. "I've already got his gift wrapped and ready. He's going to love it." I smiled, thinking of the sleek, custom designed box sitting on my passenger seat. There was a beat of silence. "Oh, well, that's actually what I was calling about," she said, the artificial cheeriness dissolving into a gentle, condescending sigh. "Jess, we love you. And we love that you know that you make things for Tommy. It's very sweet. It's just this year we're trying to do something a little different, a bit more curated." I leaned against the railing, the cold metal a stark contrast to the familiar heat rising in my chest. Curated. "Kat, it's an 8th grader's birthday party, not a gallery opening." "Don't be like that," she chided softly. "It's just that Mark's partners are going to be there with their kids. The Wellingtons, the Clarks, their children are used to certain things. The newest game consoles, designer bikes, that sort of stuff. I don't want you to feel obligated to compete. And I don't want Tommy to have to have to pretend to like my cheap handmade junk." She didn't have to say it. The words hung in the air between us, as tangible as the smog over the city. For years, this had been our dynamic. When I left my stable, boring graphic design job, pursue my art, as I'd vaguely put it, Catherine had mentally relegated me to the category of starving artist. She imagined me in a drafty loft, living off instant noodles, gluing popsicle sticks together. She'd occasionally send me care packages with things like socks and canned soup, and she always spoke to me with that infuriating, gentle pity. The truth was that my heart had become Apex Innovations. I started in my garage, sculpting and designing figures I wished existed. I posted them online. They went viral. One contract led to another. And now my company was the silent giant, some of the most sought after high-end and collectible merchandise in the world. We worked with massive entertainment brands, creating museum quality prototypes and limited run figures that sold for thousands of dollars to serious collectors. I wasn't gluing popsicle sticks together. I was overseeing a team of 50 artisans, engineers, and designers who were masters of their craft. I wasn't struggling. I was the founder and CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. I'd never corrected her at first because I was too busy. Then it became a sort of litmus test. I wanted to see if she would ever bother to ask to show genuine interest in my life beyond her own preconceived narrative. She never did. My work was just my little hobby. My success was invisible to her. "So what you're saying is, don't bring a gift?" I said, my voice flat. "It would just be easier." "Honey," she cooed, relieved that I was being so understanding. "Just bring yourself. Your presence is the present. I don't want you to waste your money. Save it for your rent." The rage I felt was cold and sharp. It wasn't just about the gift. It was about the years of dismissal, of being so fundamentally misunderstood by my own sister. She didn't see me. She saw caricature she'd invented. Okay, Kat, I said, my voice dangerously calm. I understand. I'll see you on Saturday. I hung up before she could reply, my hand trembling slightly. I looked down at the workshop floor. Ben was directing two technicians as they placed a gleaming, chrome-plated helmet under a UV light for curing. The helmet belonged to a life-size statue we were building for a studio lobby, a project with a 7-figure budget. Save it for your rent. The irony was so bitter it almost made me laugh. I walked back inside, my mind racing. My original plan was to give Tommy the gift, watch his face light up, and maybe, just maybe, it would be the catalyst for a real conversation with Catherine. But now the game had changed. She hadn't just asked me not to bring a gift. She had insulted my work, my passion, my entire life, all while cloaked in the guise of sisterly concern. My eyes fell on the secure display case in the corner of my office. We called it the Vault. It held our most groundbreaking prototypes, the one-of-a-kind pieces that were either too expensive to mass produce or were the original master molds for our most famous lines. And in the very center, sitting on a velvet pedestal, it was the Shadow Trooper. It was a passion project I'd personally overseen. Star Wars was my first love, the thing that made me want to create in the first place. But this wasn't just any Star Wars figure. It was a character of my own design, a concept that was pitched to and approved by Lucasfilm, but ultimately shelved when the film's script changed. It was the only one in existence, the prototype. It was made from a proprietary blend of polished resin and aerospace, grade aluminum, giving it a heft and coldness that felt real. The articulation was flawless, with over 50 points of movement. The paint was a deep, matte black that seemed to absorb the light. And the tiny details on the helmet and armor were hand painted by our best artist, a woman who used to restore priceless Renaissance art. The rifle it held had a magnetic clasp, and the fabric of its undersuit was custom milled. It was, without exaggeration, a masterpiece. We'd estimated its value to a collector to be, at a minimum, north of $15,000. Some auction estimates put it closer to $25,000. And Tommy, my sweet, wonderful nephew, was the biggest Star Wars fan I knew. He didn't care about brands or price tags. He cared about the stories. He still had the clumsy, hand-carved wooden X Wing had made for him when he was 4. He'd told me last Christmas it was his favorite toy because you made it just for me, Aunt Jess. A slow, wicked smile spread across my face. Oh, I wasn't going to bring a gift. I was going to bring the gift. And I was going to follow her instructions to the letter. The next few days were a blur of preparation. The party was at one of those ghastly indoor trampoline parks that smelled of sweaty socks and popcorn. When I arrived, the place was already a cacophony of screaming children and self-satisfied parents. Catherine, dressed in an athleisure outfit that probably cost more than my first car, rushed over to greet me, kissing the air next to my cheek. "Jess, you made it! I'm so glad you came." Her eyes did a quick, sweeping scan of my hands and shoulder bag. Seeing them empty of any gift-shaped objects, she visibly relaxed. "Come on, let me get you a drink." Mark's over by the climbing wall, schmouzing. Mark, my brother-in-law, was a man whose personality was as bland as his name. He was a corporate lawyer who judged a person's worth by the brand of their watch. He gave me a curt nod, his eyes flicking to my simple jeans and sweater with faint disapproval before turning back to a man in a golf polo. The party was exactly as Catherine had described. It was a parade of conspicuous assumption disguised as a child's birthday. One kid had a brand new, top-of-their-line gaming system that his parents announced was a cool $500. Another got a professional-grade drone. The grand prize went to little Timmy Wellington, who was gifted a custom-built mountain bike that his father loudly proclaimed. Set me back $1,000, but hey, he's only 8 once. Through it all, my nephew Tommy was a whirlwind of energy, bouncing and laughing. But every few minutes, he'd run up to me and ask, "Did you bring it, Aunt Jess? Did you?" I'd kneel down and whisper, "It's a secret. A big one. We have to wait for the right moment." His eyes would go wide with excitement, and he'd run off again. I had, of course, brought the gift. The Shadow Trooper was in a simple, unassuming brown cardboard box in the trunk of my car. No wrapping paper, no bow, just a box. I was following instructions. Catherine told me not to bring a gift, and a wrapped present is a gift. A box, however, is just a box. Malicious compliance was a specialty of mine. Finally, the time came for cake and presents. The gifts were piled high on a table, a monument to parental competition. Catherine and Mark presided over the ceremony like royalty. "Okay, buddy," Mark boomed, picking up the largest box. "This one's from the Clarks. Let's see what it is." One by one, Tommy opened the expensive, impersonal gifts. He was polite, offering a dutiful, "Wow, thanks," for each one, but I could see the forced enthusiasm in his eyes. He'd play with the drone for a week before it crashed, and the gaming system would be obsolete in a year. They were just things. As the pile dwindled, Tommy started looking around anxiously. "Where's Aunt Jess's present?" he asked, his voice cutting through the chatter. Catherine shot me a tight, warning smile. "Honey, Aunt Jess just brought herself this year. Isn't that nice?" Tommy's face fell. I saw his lower lip begin to tremble, and my heart clenched. This was the part of the plan I hadn't fully thought through. The potential for him to be genuinely hurt. "Actually," I said, standing up and speaking into the sudden lull, "I might have a little something for the birthday boy. It's in my car. Tommy, you want to help me get it?" His face lit up like a supernova. "Yeah!" He scrambled off his chair and grabbed my hand. Catherine's expression was a thundercloud of fury. "Jessica," I thought we agreed. She hissed under her breath as we walked past her. "We did," I said sweetly. "You said not to bring a gift." "I didn't. I brought a box." Her face contorted in confusion and anger, but she couldn't make a scene in front of all her important guests. She just stood there, fuming, as Tommy and I went out to my car. When we came back in, I was carrying the plain brown box. It looked comically out of place next to the mountain of glossy wrapping paper and ribbons. Mark scoffed audibly. "Looks like someone got their Amazon delivery mixed up." A few of the other dads chuckled. I ignored them and placed the box in front of Tommy. "Okay, but this one's a little different. It's not from a store." "You made it?" he whispered, his eyes shining. That single question, filled with so much awe and love, was worth more than every expensive toy in that room combined. "I did," I said. "My team and I did." Catherine stepped forward, her patience clearly gone. "Okay, that's enough. Tommy, why don't you open the big one from Grandma and Grandpa next?" She tried to slide my box away. But Tommy was having none of it. "No! I want to open this one. I want this one first." He insisted, his little hands protectively on the cardboard. A child's tantrum was brewing, and it was the one thing Catherine's curated party couldn't withstand. Defeated, she stepped back, crossing her arms. "Go on, Tommy," I said gently. He carefully lifted the flaps. Inside was a mess of protective foam. He dug through it, his brow furrowed in concentration. Then his fingers touched something hard and cold. He pulled it out. It was the Shadow Trooper. The room fell silent. Even the over-sugared kids who had been chasing each other stopped to look. The figure stood on the table, its matted black armor seeming to drink in the fluorescent lights of the party room. It was sleek, menacing, and impossibly detailed. It didn't look like a toy. It looked like a movie prop. Tommy's gasp was tiny.
Whoa.
He reached out a trembling finger and gently touched its helmet. It's a shadow trooper. But they were only in the old books. They never made a figure of one. Not a real one. My little Star Wars scholar. He knew. Then Timmy Wellington's dad, the guy who'd been bragging about his $1,000 bike, pushed his way forward. He was a collector. I'd recognized his name from a few online forums. His jaw was hanging open. My God, he breathed, his eyes wide. Where did you get that? Is that a custom? The paintwork is insane. Look at the panel lining. And the material, what is that? Milled aluminum. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a dawning, incredulous respect. That's not a toy. That's a work of art. Catherine and Mark just stared, their faces blank with confusion. It's just one of Jessica's crafts, Catherine said weakly, but her voice lacked conviction. Craft. Wellington laughed, a loud, incredulous bark. Lady, that's a professional grade prototype. A figure like that, a one-off, you're talking thousands. Tens of thousands, maybe, to the right collector. He looked back at the figure, then at me. Who are you? I let the question hang in the air for a moment, savoring the delicious, agonizing tension. I looked at Catherine, at her pale, confused face. I looked at Mark, who was finally looking at me like I was a person and not a piece of furniture. Then I smiled. My name is Jessica. I'm the founder and CEO of Apex Innovations. I gestured to the Shadow Trooper. And that is the one and only official prototype, a gift from our studio to yours. Tommy, happy birthday. The sound of Wellington's choke gasp was the only thing that broke the stunned silence. Apex, your Apex Innovations, you made the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Sentinel figure and the 1/1 scale Iron Man helmet. That was us, I confirmed. The entire dynamic of the room shifted. The parents who had been ignoring me were now staring at me with a mixture of awe and embarrassment. Mark looked like he'd been slapped, but I only had eyes for Catherine. Her face had gone from pale to a deep, blotchy red. Humiliation and understanding were warring in her eyes. She looked at the Shadow Trooper, then back at me, then at the pile of expensive but suddenly meaningless gifts. She finally understood the cheap craft from her struggling artist sister was worth than every other gift in the room combined. But that wasn't even the point. The best part of the whole day came later, after the guests had left in a flurry of awkward goodbyes. Tommy was sitting in a corner, carefully posing the Shadow Trooper, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated joy. Catherine approached me, wringing her hands. Jest, I had no idea. I know, I said. It wasn't an accusation. It was just a fact. Why didn't you ever tell me? She asked, her voice small. You never asked? I replied, just as simply. You had your story about me, and you were happy with it. The struggling artist, the poor little sister you had to pity. It made you feel good, didn't it? Tears welled in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Jess. I've been a horrible sister. And a snob. Mark came over, looking thoroughly chastened. She's right. We've been idiots. That was an incredible gift. Jessica, I'm sorry. The apology. Real was a start. But the real victory wasn't their apology. It was the sound of my nephew's voice from the corner. This is the best gift I've ever gotten in my whole life. Tommy said, without looking up from the figure. He finally turned to me, a huge grin on his face. It's even cooler than the wooden X-Wing. But I still have that one. We can fly them together. And in that moment, I knew everything was going to be okay. The value of the gift wasn't in its price tag. It was in the fact that it was understood. It was in the love that went into making it and the love that was receiving it. It was a shared passion, a secret language between an aunt and her nephew. The next year, for Tommy's 9th birthday, there were no drones or game consoles. The party was in my workshop. We gave all the kids kits of model spaceships to build and paint themselves. Catherine and Mark were there, wearing aprons, helping a little girl glue on a fin. They were laughing. The gifts Tommy opened were comic books, art supplies, and a telescope for looking at the stars. He declared it the best party ever. My sister and I are still a work in progress, but the condescension is gone, replaced by a new, tentative respect. She asks about my work now. She even visited the workshop and was blown away. Sometimes it takes a silent, black armored trooper to make people see the truth that's been standing in front of them all along.